Hey guys, welcome back to Revolution XRC and welcome to the next part of this Boom Racing BRX01 adjustable wheelbase kit. In this part of the series, we're going to go over putting in the electronics, mainly the servos, your receiver, as well as the ESC motor. For the ESC/motor, I'll be using the Hobbywing Quick Run Fusion system. It's a 2-in-1, so I won't be using a separate ESC and motor. It's a 2-in-1 system. I'll be using a FlySky FSGR3E 4-channel receiver to use with my Radio Master radio. And I'll be using a Armory RC Katana 500-ounce servo. I like using these servos. The performance is good and it's fast and strong. This JX servo comes with the kit. This will be for the shifting servo. And let's go ahead and move on. Starting off with the servos for step 12, we'll need your servos and bag G. For the first part of step 12, you'll need the following. You'll need your steering servo, your shift servo, 2 M3 lock nuts, 1 M3x6 button head screw, 2 M3x8 button head screws, and 2 M3x12 button head screws. Alright, let's go ahead and secure the shift servo first. And for that, you'll only require the M3x6 button head screw. Alright, now let's go ahead and move on to the steering servo. Now this is a little bit strange because you'll be using the 2 longer screws on the underside of this side and using the lock nuts up here. And on this side you'll be using the 2 M3x8s and just going straight into the mount right here. So this side, the longer M3x12s with lock nuts, this side, the M3x8s. Alright, so here you can see how the servo is mounted. On this side using the lock nuts, and on this side using the M3x8s. Now I haven't fully tightened this down yet. I'm going to adjust that and we'll be right back. Alright, so I was able to properly tighten down those screws off camera. Since it's hard to do with the camera in the way, you'll just be seeing my hands over here. But basically that's it. Secured on this side with the 2 lock nuts with the M3x12s, and on this side with the 2 M3x8s using Loctite into the servo mount. For the shift servo, you pretty much slide the servo in there. This side is held on by a peg right here, and an M3x6 screw over here completes the mounting. And that completes the first page of step 12. For the second page of step 12, you'll need the following. You'll need the turnbuckle link for the drag link, the 2 rod ends for the drag link, and 2 pivot balls for the drag link. You'll need 1 M3 lock nut from bag B. You'll need 1 M3x12 button head screw from bag B. You'll need the boom racing servo horn from the foam inserts. These are nice. These are low profile and they're clamping servo horns, so I really like these actually. I've been using these for a while. You'll need the 2 M2x8 cap head screws for the clamping on the servo horn, and 1 M3x6 button head screw for the servo horn. Now the first thing we'll need to do is to put together the drag link, and we'll need to put on the rod ends and have 30 millimeters in length of a gap between the 2 rod ends. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and do that right now. Now this link here is counter threaded, so it means that you can adjust this with it attached. Just make sure that the rod ends are equal on both sides, and you can just turn this to adjust both ends because they'll be in the same direction. So this side, if you have the line on this link on the left side, this side should be clockwise to, yeah, this one should be clockwise thread, and this side should be counterclockwise thread, so same direction as the other side. Do it right on. And this is what I was talking about. This is clockwise thread, this is counterclockwise thread. So look, they both get on by turning in the same direction. So just make sure that the gap ends up being 30 millimeters between the 2 rod ends. I'll go ahead and do that and we'll be right back. Alright, so I've got a 30 millimeter gap between the 2 rod ends. I'm ready to put on my pivot balls and continue on. So make sure the pivot balls are both facing in the same direction as well. Now when you finish this drag link, make sure when you have that 30 millimeter gap that the rod ends are also the same on both sides, because you want the pivot balls to be facing the same direction. So you'll see how this rod end has a bigger opening on this side. Just make sure they're both on the same side. With that done, we are ready to mount this drag link onto the chassis, as well as the servo. Let's go ahead and do the servo horn first. Now I'm not going to fully clamp this down yet because I haven't powered on the electronics, so I won't be able to center it properly. So I'm going to leave it loose, and I'll adjust it later when I get a battery so it can properly adjust the centering. But you'll want the servo horn facing towards the rear. Yeah. Let's go ahead and use that M3x6 right here. Once again, we're just gonna loosely apply it now. Or actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's go ahead and add the link to this. So you want an M3x12 and like that from the top. Alright, note that this drag link is actually going to go on the bottom side of this servo horn. So when you turn it upside down, it's actually going to be on the sitting on the top like that. It's not going to hang down on the bottom of the servo horn or the top, however you say it. It's a little bit different. So for this one, it's a little different setup. So it's actually going to sit like this on the rig, and it's going to go from the top of the servo horn like that instead of most rigs, which is hanging down the bottom there. I'm going to loosely attach this for now. And when I power it up, I'll adjust this servo horn again. But let's just kind of get this taken care of right now. The link will go over onto the screw from our previous step, and then we'll secure it with the lock nut. And that completes page 2 of step 12. Adding this drag link right there, as well as the servo horn to the servo. For the shift servo portion of step 12, you'll need the following. You'll need the shift link, you'll need the servo horn servo saver assembly, you'll need this one M2x8 cap head screw, one M3x6 button head screw, and the rod end for the shifter link. Now when you assemble this shifter link, the eye of the rod end and the angle right here, and the eye of the rod end should have a gap of 114.5 millimeters. Now you can use the manual to kind of check your adjustments. Show you here. So you can compare with the manual, or you can use some calipers. I'm going to go ahead and assemble this link and rod end, and when I get the correct length, we'll be right back. Alright, I've got the shifter link the length that I want it. We'll go ahead and start attaching it. This part of the servo horn is actually metal. Actually, I think it's all metal. Yep. All right. Let's go ahead and loop this through the transmission here. Once again, I am going to lightly assemble this servo horn because I haven't powered on the electronics to perfectly adjust it yet. Once I get this attached here, we'll go over that. And this is what it should look like when it's assembled. Let me go ahead and grab a battery. We'll open up my Quick Run Fusion so I can power it up, and then we can adjust the servos. Alright, before I power up these electronics to center this servo, we're going to actually put the ESC and motor in first, because that way we can test the shifting mechanism with the motor mounted on and with the drive train spinning to show us whether or not this shifting mechanism is working as it should. For step 13, we'll be taking care of the motor. For that, you'll need the motor of your choice, in which case I am using a Hobbywind Quick Run Fusion 2-in-1 system. You'll need the motor mount right here, motor plate motor mount, and you'll need hardware from bag E. Alright, for step 13, you specifically need your motor, the motor mount, this motor plate right here, these two M3x8 cap head screws. You'll also need 8 M2.5x8 cap head screws, and you'll need your pinion gear and the grub screw for that pinion. Now this 1mm spacer, you only need this if it's necessary. I'm not sure if it's necessary right now. I'm going to try it without it first. Alright, now if you haven't built a BRX rig before, they have a unique motor mount. Basically, depending on your pinion right here, depending on your pinion tooth, you will need to align a step with this bar right here. Alright, before I completely finish attaching this motor mount together, you'll want to put the pinion screw on the motor shaft and kind of adjust the correct length, or kind of take note of the correct length that you want it to be at. So look at the inside and just make sure that the pinion is not pressing up against the end there. And so when I've looked at it, you probably want like it to be 2mm in this way. You want about 2mm of this edge right here to be in away from this housing. So instead of this, which is equal, because this will hit the back of that spur gear, you want to push it in about that much. And so it pretty much means that you'll want it flush right there. So after figuring that out, you'll have to remove this half of the motor mount, because you won't be able to tighten the pinion without doing that. And I wanted my pinion flush. Right there. Just double check here, and we're all good. Yep, that should be good. That should prevent it from hitting the back of the spur gear there. Unfortunately, this motor is a little bit too long for me to attach without removing the servo. I don't know if I could force it. I could probably loosen the servo here. It's a tight fit right there. So let me go ahead and take care of that first. Took a chip on the servo. But the way this works, slide this up and down. You want to make sure that the stock pinion is 12 tooth, so you want to make sure that the 12 tooth step is flush with the bar. So not like this, but flush with the 12 tooth step right there. So once you get that, mount the 4 screws on to keep it in place. And I'll do that and I'll be right back. Alright, you can see here I've got it flush with the 12 tooth setting. It's all mounted up, and since the motor is quite long, it's a 550 can size. This is the older Quicker Run Fusion. The newer ones won't have that problem, but since this is one of the older ones with the longer can, I'm gonna have some trouble fitting this motor in without loosening the servo, so I can kind of tilt this in. Either that, or I could loosen this transmission. So let's see. I don't know which one's easier right now. Probably loosening up the servo would be easier. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me see if I can loosen it up some more, and we'll be right back. Alright, with the servo loosened up, I can now fit in the motor. Slide that right in. And let's go ahead and mount the motor on. Alright, with the motor mounted, I can proceed to retighten up the servo. Alright, servo mounted, motor mounted. We're ready to, I guess, power it up and make some adjustments to it. Alright, with everything mounted up, I've added my electronics, just kind of in testing mode right now, so not exactly putting it in a tray or receiver box where it would be, but just kind of testing things out. So as far as the steering goes, I've adjusted my endpoints. So you can see I've adjusted my endpoints. Here is the steering, so going straight. Here it is turning to the right. You'll see that it stops right as it hits the screw, and that's where I have my endpoint adjusted to kind of stop right there. And also you can see going on to the other side, I do the same thing there. And the reason that you'll need these steering stops is because this is a leaf spring chassis. Basically, if you turn really sharp, the tire is going to hit the leaf springs. So those screw stops are kind of there to help you prevent the tires from hitting the leaf springs. Now, if this was a link chassis, you probably could increase the steering angle a little bit more. You can get more of a steering angle because you wouldn't have to worry about this leaf spring here. You would have links to deal with, but the links are a little bit further in than leaf springs. So Since this is a leaf spring rig, you do need to have the steering stops right about there. Of course, you're going to have to fine tune it once you put the tires on, because you'll have to kind of really go by the tires instead to see if they hit the leaf springs. Alright, now onto this servo. Let's see, what's the best way for me to do this? Let me just put the chassis on the tires here. That's good enough. Actually, it's going to hit the drive shaft, so maybe the receiver box. Or I could just leave it on the table. Alright, so basically, alright, so for this servo here, you're going to have to set your endpoints. One, to have it fully pulled out, have this rod here fully pulled out. Now that is the default setting. That is your crawler mode. Now you're going to have to set the endpoints so that when you switch it, which is the faster mode, the faster gears, you'll have to set the endpoint so that this rod is fully in that way, the endpoint. And then for the standard mode, the endpoint should have this rod fully pulled back. So here's standard, fast gears, normal gears, fast gears, normal gears. Now, you just need a 2-position switch for this. I'm actually just using this switch right here on my Radio Master. You could also set it to a pot switch if you wanted to do it manually and have it turn as far as your dial goes. But I just have it switching with this switch right here. And that's how I've done it. Okay, so with the servos adjusted, as well as the motor on there, I am going to go ahead and complete the rest of the steps. So the next step will go to adding the skid sliders. Alright, for step 14, you'll need these 2 skid parts, and you'll need to go back and dig through bag A to get these 2 M2.5 by 6 countersunk screws, and you'll need these 4 M3 by 6 countersunk screws, and 2 of these M3 by 14 self-tapping button head screws. Let's move these to the side here, and let's get started. Let's start off with the M3 by 6 countersunk screws, which should be the 4 screws on the skid plate. Alright, now we're going to take the 2 M2.5 by 6 countersunk screws, the smaller ones. They go right here. And now we move on to the 2 M3 by 14 self-tapping screws. And those go right here at the first hole. that screw should go right into that plate right there. And that completes step 14. For step 15, you'll need your receiver box and components that come with the receiver box, as well as bag F for the receiver box. Now this is what is inside the receiver box. This here is your silicone port where you can run through your wires, and you also get this plate right here for securing this port down. Now this plate usually has the serial number of your BRX01 kit. Mine was mistakenly sent without any serial numbers, so I'm waiting for a replacement. But just know that you can usually find your serial number on this plate right here. For the first part of step 15, you'll need the bottom half of the receiver box. You'll need these two M3x8 countersunk screws, and you'll also need thread lock. And that completes the first part of step 15. Alright, for the second part of step 15, you'll need your receiver box parts. You'll also need two M2.5x6 button head screws and four M3x8 button head screws. You'll also need this silicone grease to kind of provide a seal for the wires with this silicone part right here. Now I'm going to treat this as optional because I never run in water anyway. I prefer not to, but they suggest you use silicone right here just to prevent to create a seal, a watertight seal. But that I'll leave that up to you whether you want to do it or not. I myself will not be doing it because I don't really run in water and I don't want to have grease just gumming up this this piece right here. Alright, so with this, I'm not going to fully tighten it down yet. I'm just going to lightly tighten it down so I can still adjust the wires. But I'm mostly tightening it down just to keep these wires in these grooves here. Now there's a reason I pulled it so tight here. Basically I have it pulled tight because it'll give me leeway to pull it out as I see fit, so I can zip tie it to the frame where I need to, and without having to try to stuff it back in. So that's what I'm going to do right now. But before I do that, that basically completes the second part of step 15, the receiver box. And I won't tighten this down yet until I adjust the wiring. Alright, you can see here I zip tied the wires to this transmission brace right there, and basically that completes step 15. Alright, now step 16 is an ESC mount. Since I am using a Hobbywing Quick Run Fusion 2-in-1 system, I will not be needing this ESC mount, but I am going to go over it anyway. So for step 16, you'll need the ESC mount and these two M3 by 6 button head screws from bag A. And if you did have a separate ESC from your motor, basically what you would do is you would mount this ESC mount onto the shock tower. So this would go and mount to the shock tower right, I think right here. You can see it doesn't quite fit mine because I have this Hobbywing Quick Run Fusion. But you would mount it to your shock tower right here, and you would use the two M3 by 6 button head screws and screw it into your shock tower. Give you a closer look of where that is supposed to be. So if you were to use this ESC mount, you would mount it right there. Let's see. Yeah, like right. It's kind of hard for me to do because I have my motor in the way that won't allow me to do it. But that's what you would do. And with that, that completes this part of the build series where we mounted up the electronics, the servos right here, and the motor ESC, as well as the receiver box. We're moving along here and getting real close to the finish line. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for future updates on this Boom Racing BRX01 adjustable wheelbase kit build. Thanks for watching.